Hello and welcome back into Loftside Banter and the NFL Team Series. As you know, we made the adjustment to doing the divisions, and we're on the AFC West. And the AFC West is quite an interesting division this season. We have four what I would kind of consider top tier coaches in the AFC West: Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Pete Carroll, who is now the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Those are three Super Bowl winners. The only one not to do it is Jim Harbaugh. And Jim Harbaugh has won a national championship, though, with the University of Michigan. Career wins between the four of them, 668. So this is kind of the division that kind of proves that coaching is still a big part of this game, and it's not just about talent that you have on there. You have to be able to harness it and everything else like that. But we're going to look at the Chiefs first. Now, the Chiefs have won the division, I think it's like 9 years in a row or something like that. They've won the division quite a few times, and they made the Super Bowl again and lost to the Eagles last year. So, but it's weird because you look at the Chiefs and you have to take everything with a grain of salt. They were very good record-wise. They obviously were very good at getting to the AFC Championship game and to the Super Bowl, but they didn't look great doing it. And what I mean by that is they didn't win games like we're used to seeing the Chiefs doing. And a lot of people got hung up on that, myself included. I believe that the Chiefs maybe not necessarily overachieved, but they weren't as dominant as they used to be. We're seeing people become a little bit slower with Travis Kelce. We've seen more mistakes being made for someone like Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, they had some injuries to the wide receivers and everything else like that. So the Chiefs, I think, are kind of running to the end of their run. And it's nothing to scoff at or anything else like that. They've obviously achieved a ton. They were the two-time defending champions going into the Super Bowl last year. So, I mean, the success is still there. But they've played a lot of games over the last 3 years. A lot. And the thing with that is, I love that my cat is just right there. Everybody that's going to be able to see this. The great thing is, we've seen them at their best, and we know what their best looks like. What we haven't seen is them fight for a lot of stuff. And we did see that last year. They fought for every win. They fought for everything. So we know that they can win close games. They know how to do that. They know how to operate under that type of pressure. But I think the Super Bowl showed a lot that they weren't definitely, they probably weren't the best team to come out of the AFC. And obviously the Eagles just dominated that game. They dominated the Super Bowl. The Chiefs brought in some different offensive line help. Jalen Moore, offensive tackle from the 49ers. They also brought in Elijah Mitchell, the running back from the 49ers as well. Christian Fulton, a cornerback from the Chargers last year. Gardner Minshew is now your backup quarterback. Jerry Tillery, the defensive tackle from the Vikings, is going to help shore up that defensive line. And then they drafted Josh Simmons in the first round, an often injured offensive tackle from Ohio State, but when healthy, probably one of, if not the best, offensive tackle prospects out of the draft this year. Tershawn Wharton goes over to the Panthers. Justin Reid signed with the Saints. DeAndre Hopkins is now with Baltimore, and they traded Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears. So the offensive line is going to be kind of that question. Kingsley Suamanatia, I absolutely didn't get that right, was 136th out of 140 for the graded tackles last year, according to Pro Football Focus, or PFF. So whoever's going to play that blindside tackle, whether it's going to be Kingsley, whether it's going to be Josh Simmons, whether it's going to be Jalen Moore, whoever, there's question marks. And if Patrick Mahomes, we obviously have seen throughout his career that when he allots himself some time, he can extend plays, he can move the ball with his feet, but protection-wise and how many times he's getting hit, now that we've kind of gone through this part of his career, is going to be big. Because injuries are going to start to pop up, I think. I think the Chiefs have more competition within the division than they've had in recent years. The win-loss column was never the issue last year. It was the play on the field that people questioned the stuff. And that's what I'm going with. I'm not going with the win-loss. I'm going with the fact that the Chiefs struggled at times for long periods of time, had to win games by Harrison Buckner at the end of the games. This team didn't look the same. Now, they can make adjustments. They know how to do that. Andy Reid is not a Hall of Fame coach for nothing. Patrick Mahomes is not going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback for nothing. Travis Kelce is not going to be a Hall of Fame tight end for nothing. It's how this team will respond with these changes. We've seen teams be able to retool and go through a second stretch. The Patriots did it. Other teams have done it with, like the Broncos under Elway and stuff like that. They've been able to retool and kind of figure out how to make those changes. Can the Chiefs do that? I think with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, I don't think that's a problem. Andy Reid again, Travis Kelce. Again, whether or not they're going to be done at the end of this year, Travis Kelce has, people have asked that question. Whether Andy Reid is going to continue to coach, all these different things. The fact is, they're the Chiefs. They haven't lost the pieces that have gotten them there to the mountaintop. They haven't lost the pieces that help them keep winning. So you always have to count them in. Always. They may not cover spreads anymore, and they may not blow teams out anymore. But for the most part, this team is going to make a run at a division title, no matter what. They're going to probably be in the playoffs, and they're probably going to make some noise in the playoffs. They're a scary team no matter what seed they're going to be in. So don't count them out. The Broncos were the other team out of the AFC West last year because Bo Nix played so well his rookie year. And with Bo Nix playing as well as he did, the Broncos looked like they finally found a quarterback. And it only took, I don't know how many different tries from Elway and that front office and everywhere else. But Bo Nix helped the team get into the playoffs. They lost in the first round. But the thing that they had a real problem with was that running game last year. I believe they had one more touchdown than they did fumbles from running backs last year. I think they had 7 touchdowns and 6 fumbles. Javonte Williams was one of those guys. He's no longer with the team. He's in Dallas. Zach Wilson, no longer the backup quarterback. Zach Cunningham, the linebacker. I believe I wrote linebacker there. My writing's atrocious today. For the Lions, and Tremaine Smith went to the Texans. So they had some changes, not huge, but Dre Greenlaw comes over from the 49ers. Trent Sheffield, wide receiver from the Vikings. Evan Ingram is now on the Broncos. J.K. Dobbins has come in, and then they went out and drafted a cornerback first round, which was interesting because their defense was so good. You thought, all right, they can afford to spend some time on some weapons for Sean Payton. And they still went cornerback first with Jahdae Barron from Texas. Then they went out and got R.J. Harvey, the running back from UCF, not UFC. He's not a UFC fighter. UCF in round 2, who's going to be a huge sleeper in fantasy football. Reason being is I typically don't like rookies, and I typically don't try to give them and make them part of my fantasy football background for that year because I'm afraid of what they can and can't do, if they can accept an offense, whatever the case may be. But he steps into the perfect situation. Perfect. For a team that couldn't run the football at all last year. So he's going to get every opportunity to do so. Now, for Nix, and as good as he looked last year, he had some flashes, but as he got late in the season, he looked really, really good. And almost, I think probably was really close to Jaden Daniels as the second quarterback out of this draft. Caleb Williams didn't play as well. Drake May obviously was in a terrible situation for the Patriots, but Nix looked really good. And does this sophomore slump come? I think it's a thing. I believe it's a thing that quarterbacks especially can go through sophomore slumps because teams get better reads on them. Teams start to figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them. I love the background of my cat, Eleanor, waking up and saying hi during the podcast. But I digress. So can Bo Nix be that guy? He had a lot of critical things about him coming out of the draft, and people were somewhat surprised that the Broncos took the run at him that they did at that time because it seemed like he was a second-round guy. It seemed like they stretched because they couldn't get up to the top of the draft to get the guy they wanted, so they settled on Bo Nix. Now, obviously, Sean Payton has done really well with quarterbacks throughout his career. I think it's a great situation for him to be in, and I think that he can probably continue. I wouldn't look for the huge leap with Bo Nix. I think he's going to struggle probably at times where you think he's not going to, but that huge step in that second season, I don't foresee him making. I think he's probably going to have some hiccups, and it doesn't mean he's not going to be a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good quarterback. He's already proven that he can. But with a little bit of advanced scouting now and a little bit more to him, granted, every team had a whole year on him. But for this season, let's try and keep that expectation where it is. Because I think he'll make those moves, but it'll come with some mistakes as well. And it's going to go for Caleb Williams. It's going to go for Drake May. Jaden Daniels, I think, is probably going to make some of those mistakes the second year. The second year is very tough on a quarterback because, like I mentioned, it's just more information about him. So, the Raiders are the third team we're going over here at the AFC West. Weird year last year for them. They were the last team, I think, to hire a head coach. Antonio Pierce was not the guy. They fired him after last year. Tom Brady, who is now part of the front office and helping the GM and everything else like that. He's not the GM, but he's part of the front office. But it took them a whole year to basically approve him being a part-time owner and working for that franchise, considering the fact that he's an analyst for Fox Sports, considering the fact that he's had all the trouble he did with the NFL, allegedly. But they have a new GM in place. They hired Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is a player's coach, has always been a player's coach. They went out and made the moves that I think that he had a lot of hands in. Obviously got Geno Smith in a trade with the Seahawks. Geno Smith is a Pete Carroll guy. They gave him a lot of money. A lot of money for a guy that was never an upper echelon quarterback. But Geno Smith is now the quarterback in Las Vegas. Jeremy Chin comes in from the Commanders to elevate that backside of that defense. Eldon Roberts, linebacker. Raheem Mostert, who comes over from the Dolphins, helps the running game, give a little bit of depth there as well. They signed Alex Kappa, who should help the offensive line, but he didn't play well last year for the Bengals. And then they drafted Ashton Genty first. And Ashton Genty was very close to the Heisman, but he comes out of Boise State. He looked really good in his preseason move. So Ashton Genty's probably going to be the lead guy there. Some outs, Harrison Bryant, who's also been on the moves as well. He was at the Texans and now he's with the Texans now. He was traded from the Eagles, I think. Keshawn Chason goes to the Patriots. Marcus Epps, safety, goes to the Patriots. Gardner Minshew, as we mentioned, goes to the Chiefs. Desmond Ridder, who's also a backup quarterback, is now with Cincinnati. My question for this team is do you know the answer? I mean, he's an older guy. He's never been an upper echelon guy. He threw a lot of interceptions last year. Again, under a different head coach, different system, everything else like that. I got something on my camera. Here we go. He's back with Carroll. It's a $40 million cap hit. And again, the Raiders tend to like the guy that can make the big play, and I haven't seen it from him over the last few years. He threw 15 interceptions last year, which is one of the reasons why the Seahawks were 10-7 last year. And he'll be 37. Like I mentioned, older guy. Around my age. But I think that there's got to be some development at a quarterback there, and I think they struggle this year with him. I don't think he's going to be, and again, they're in a division that's going to be tough. That 2 or 3 is either going to be the Broncos, Chiefs, or the Chargers. So I think the Raiders are destined to be last. But what do I know about that? I think they're destined to be last again. It may be we'll call it a building year under Pete Carroll that, hey, they're going to throw and see what kind of works out with him. But I think eventually it's going to be whoever he wants is next. And I still got something on my camera. There's still building to be done with this team. There's still a ton of building to be done with this team. If we think this is a finished product, again, the $40 million that Geno Smith is commanding is tough for a 37-year-old quarterback. I like the familiarity. He's basically a well-paid bridge quarterback. Chargers are on year 2 under Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh just got his kind of marching orders of, hey, you can't come back to the NCAA with all the things that happened with Michigan and everything else like that, which I'm sure he doesn't care. I mean, maybe he does. It's an alma mater. But, this is going to be a run-focus offense. We saw that a little bit last year. I think the issues with the offense with the Chargers this year is not Justin Herbert. I think it's the pass catchers. They haven't really had guys that could really catch the football really well, make moves and stuff like that. Quentin Johnson was kind of one of the guys that, we see a lot of drops from him. But I think the Chargers are close to challenging the Broncos and the Chiefs this year. Injuries and everything else are going to be the main factor for all three of those teams. I think the Raiders are the only ones that, even if they're full strength, I don't think they're challenging for the division. The ins, Keenan Allen's come back from the Bears. Not, again, an older wide receiver, not a guy that truthfully is in a position to carry a wide receiving core anymore. Najee Harris, the running back from the Steelers, has an eye injury from a firework or something like that. There's been a whole bunch of stuff with that he's been sitting out kind of preseason and whatnot. Interesting. Mekhi Becton comes over from the Eagles. He was pretty much an outcast in the league. He was a bust as far as an offensive lineman. The Eagles moved him to guard, and his 6'6", 330-pound body played really well for the Eagles. Obviously won a Super Bowl. And then Trey Lance is your backup quarterback, or one of the backup quarterbacks. Another bust of a quarterback from that draft year. Mac Jones, Trey Lance, all of them just were not very good. So an interesting kind of turn of events for him. He was with Dallas for a while. Amarian Hampton was their first-round pick out of North Carolina. Again, running back, run-heavy team. I think he's going to get the majority of the start because of Najee Harris's injury and not being able to perform throughout the preseason. And then Trey Harris was your round 2 pick wide receiver from Ole Miss. Again, needed to do something with the wide receivers. Let's see what Trey Harris can kind of prove. Some of the outs were Joey Bosa went to the Bills, J.K. Dobbins over the Broncos. Eli Apple has not signed anywhere, but he was a cornerback for this team last year. And then Stone Smart, the tight end, goes over the Jets. The only reason why I bring up Stone Smart is because he laid out Abdul Carter as a welcome to the NFL moment in the Jets-Giants preseason game. I thought it was really cool. Keep your head on a swivel, Rook. Sorry. And he laid him out. The questions with Justin Herbert are, has he really been a breakout upper echelon quarterback in this league? And he's very talented, and we've all known that. I still don't think we've seen the best from him. I don't. I feel like he's been held back with the wide receiving core not being very good, maybe an offensive line issues, not having a running game. The defense couldn't keep people off the field, or whatever the case may be. So I think Justin Herbert, especially now with a run-heavy offense, is going to be set up to have a great year. It's going to limit mistakes that he's made. It's going to make him be more efficient. And I really think Harbaugh believes in him. I mean, Harbaugh said great things about him to start off with when he first came here last year. Now, can he be an upper echelon guy? Can he carry a team in those instances? Can he be the quarterback everybody thought he was coming out of school? We've seen flashes of it, but never put together consistently. So I think he probably has a year or two under Harbaugh before they go, hey, maybe we got to make a move here. But the heavy run game is going to help him. How far back the Chargers are from maybe the Broncos and the Chiefs, I don't think is a huge gap anymore. I think it's more or less going to be a game or two here, injuries and stuff like that. I think they're very capable of making the playoffs. I think the Chargers put everything together, they're very capable of getting in the playoffs. If Bo Nix regresses a little bit or makes those mistakes that we see second-year quarterbacks do, the Chargers very well could be in second place. I'm not necessarily going to vote against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will still be the champions of the West for at least one more year. I think the Broncos, with that defense, are 2, and then the Chargers are 3. The Raiders, I think, are probably in a distant 4th. That's what I think is coming out of the West. Who I think is going to... I think the Chiefs have obviously the best likelihood of winning the Super Bowl out of this division, but I think they're stronger teams. I think the Ravens are stronger. I think the Bills are stronger. It's going to be up to the Chiefs to probably win kind of like they did last year, and I don't see it happening all that much. And I don't mean they're going to have a losing record or anything like that. What I mean is I think they're going to drop some of these close games. I think I don't think they're going to have this 14-2, 15-1, 14-3, 15-2 type record. I think you're probably more in that 10, 11, 12 win season for the Chiefs. Probably 11 or 12 wins for them. Broncos, I think, are in that 10 to 11 range. But I think they're going to be competitive games between those two this year, division games. And Chargers, again, I don't think they're not competitive with those two top teams. I just think that there's a little bit more that they have to kind of work on. Justin Herbert just has more mistakes so far. And again, Bo Nix has only had that 1 year where we've seen him play really well. And the defense on that Broncos team is just so good. They were so good last year, and they still drafted to make their defense better. They're looking to hold teams to like 10, 17, 20 points, somewhere in that range. 10, 14, 17, 20. Something like that. They're going to give up more field goals than touchdowns. They just looked so good last year. So that's what keeps them in second place and keeps them competitive, even if Bo Nix isn't making the progression that everybody thinks he's going to make. But that's the AFC West for this time. As far as playoff picture and everything else, we'll do that after we finish the NFC. You'll probably see an NFC East get recorded fairly soon and put up there because season starts really soon, about a week. And I want to get all these out so that way I wanted to hold them to last minute so that way we could see some of the moves teams were going to make and some of the injuries that would come up and everything else like that. We've seen the Patriots make 14 roster cuts already, trying to get down to 53. We've seen some teams make 1 or 2 here. There's going to be some high-name players available after cutdown day. And there's going to be a lot of movement. We've seen trades already happen because teams are like, well, we're probably going to cut this person anyway. Let's see what value we can get for him. And it guarantees teams the opportunity to get them. That's what you see a lot at this time in the NFL is these names that you may see moving and seem a little surprising. It's because they're probably making room, whether it's money-wise or younger players or whatever the case may be. Now teams are going out and spending draft picks. Hey, we have them. We don't have to fight against other teams to come up with a contract or anything else like that. But next will be the NFC East, and then we'll see you then.